it was trying to teach us teachers, because we have to be taught still, how to have empathy for our students. And it was a video of a man who had these special glasses, and everywhere he went, whenever somebody would walk by, what was on that person's heart would show up as text. So, a young child would go by and it would say, did not have breakfast this morning. Or a man would walk by and say, struggling with addiction or something like that. And I thought it was really interesting idea that all of us are carrying something. And this morning we're looking at the lessons on waiting. And I was thinking that I am sure that in this room there are people that are waiting. And waiting comes with many different things. Some of us are waiting for better health. Some of us are waiting for a job that we like. Some of us are waiting for a child to come back to Christ. There are different things that we are waiting for and praying for. And so I thought this is a really beautiful chapter talking about waiting. And so I want to start with some of the verses that the lesson started with. I want to have you guys look up some of those verses and ask a question that I'm kind of asking what the lesson asked, but just in a little different way. And just as a little parentheses, I don't necessarily organize, I try to organize the lesson by ideas, so that may mean that I might go slightly out of order. But I thought it might be helpful to know I'm starting with Sunday and Monday. That's kind of where I'm starting with, and then I'm going to move to some other days. So if somebody would be so kind as to look up Psalm 27:14 and read it. Oh, he has. Sorry.
Psalm 27:14. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thy heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord.
So just looking at this text, what does waiting look like when we're waiting on God? I heard patience. Okay, yes?
His timing.
Okay, his timing.
It feels inactive.
It does feel a little inactive. For some of us, it's quite challenging, actually, okay? Okay, an invitation to gain strength and courage. I like that. Let's look at another text with waiting. This one is Psalm 37, verse 7 and verse 9. Over here.
Verse 7, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when men succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Then did you say verse 9?
Yeah, verse 9 as well.
For evil men will cut off, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land.
Okay. So in this context, what does waiting look like? I hear not be fretful, but there's a mic over here. Okay, Laura, yes?
I was going to say, it seems like you're waiting for the tough times to pass.
Okay.
You have to endure.
Waiting for those tough times to pass? Right here.
I was going to say relax no matter what's happening. Just chill out and relax.
You made me think of a moment at the dentist. They said, just relax. And I'm like, I'm at a dental office. But yes, I think that's true. We do need to relax no matter what the circumstances, but relaxing into Christ. Yeah, okay. To be still and wait. Is that hard for anybody to be still? Okay, some of us, it's a battle. Stillness is a battle. Oh, okay, don't fret. Yes, do not fret. Fretting is easier for some of us. Yes.
Last week, I was waiting for my daughter to pick me up.
Yes.
And she was late.
Uh-huh.
And I was just fretting myself. Where did she go? Why can't she come? But of course, waiting is, you must have some patience while waiting.
Okay. Yes, when we are waiting on people sometimes, especially when we don't know where they're at it's very difficult not to fret a little bit. Okay. I want to look at another psalm, Psalm 39:7. So just the next 2 chapters over. If somebody wants to read 39:7.
And now, O Lord, for what do I wait? My hope is in you.
Okay. So what does waiting look like here? Yeah, Laura.
It looks like you're trusting.
Okay. Yeah, it's the waiting is actually not just waiting, but waiting on someone. We're waiting on God. Yes, over here.
Let me come back to the dentist chair.
Yes.
When we are sitting in that chair, we have hope
Yes.
that the pain that we endure will end very soon and that it's going to be fine when he's finished his job.
Yes.
And so the idea of hope at that time is important. Otherwise, we would not sit there.
I really like you're drawing out the metaphor some. Yeah, when we know that we have hope, it makes a really big
It's
difference.
called getting the point.
Yeah, it's getting the point. Yes. Over here.
And we sure trust what he's doing.
This is true as well. We do trust what he's doing. We know that we're in expert hands. And if we didn't know we were in expert hands, it would be a lot more stressful to be in that chair. Okay. Good. I like these responses. And I like that we're keeping the microphone guys very busy here. This is nice. Okay. One more text in the Psalm. That's Psalm 41. So, Jen, the next verse over. Actually, I said one more text. That's not true. We're going to have many texts in the Psalms. But, yeah, so Psalm 40, verse 1, if somebody would like to read that. Betty, I think. Yeah.
Blessed is he who considers the poor. The Lord would deliver him in the time of trouble.
Okay. Is that 40, verse 1?
What did 40, verse 1?
Yes.
Okay. Well, can I say that backwards and
Yeah.
move it? Okay.
Yes, of course.
40, verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined to me and heard my cry.
Okay. How are we waiting? Yes, Betty.
I think one thing is to claim all the promises, read all the promises.
Yeah. I like that. We're claiming those promises. So, I'm a writing teacher, and one of the things that we do in writing is that sometimes we have multiple small examples, and then we have an extended develop example. So I want to look at a psalm that I think extends and develops these smaller, shorter verses we've been looking at. And if somebody could read Psalm 131. So this is skipping over to Wednesday's lesson, I believe. No, sorry. Monday's lesson. So if somebody could read Psalm 131. Yes. Yeah, the whole chapter. It's not very long. Yes.
Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor my eyes lofty. Neither do I concern myself with great matters, nor with things too profound for me.
Okay. What does that look like? What does this say about our relationship with God when we wait? Did you say, I heard humble? Okay. Anything else? Maybe just bring the mic up here.
I think one of the hardest things we humans deal with, at least for myself, is why?
Yeah.
And so we try to dig out the why. Did this happen? Or what's going on here? And I think this is an invitation to, I haven't told you, just relax.
Okay.
This is going to be all right. Don't concern yourself with things you cannot figure out.
Okay. That's beautiful. Anyone else? I wanted to say this sometime in the lesson, and I think this is a good place to say it, is that sometimes when we're waiting on God, or sometimes when God says no to our prayers, or wait on our prayers, it feels like commentary on our worth. So for example, if I am struggling at work and nobody else is, then it feels like maybe God doesn't love me. And everybody else seems like everything's working out for them. And so I think it's really important to recognize that when we're in trials, sometimes it's because of things that are going on in our lives, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just God working in our lives in a sinful world. And so I think it's really important as we wait on God, as we trust Him, to not feel that His no means He doesn't love us. And I'm going to hold off and say another thing related to this, but does anybody else have anything to say about this particular psalm? Or did we? Yes, over here.
I was watching Sabbath School last night on Hope Channel, and he said about the haunting eyes and the loft. Our eyes are lofty and all that. We have to empty ourselves of the sin in ourselves. The hauntingness is part of Satan's thing, and our lofty eyes is what Satan himself was lofty above God. He wanted to be above God. Yeah.
By the way, when we are waiting, it is an opportunity to reflect. It doesn't necessarily mean I have often asked God, use this time to show me what is going on in my life. But also sometimes He says, there's nothing, just trust me. Yes, Betty?
I think where it says, nor with things too profound for me, I think you can get really sidetracked.
Okay.
Satan can really do some damage to you if you start down that road.
Okay. Well, there's danger of getting sidetracked. Okay. So there's a quote that I've read several times. It's been resurfacing a little this year. By the way, I've been doing a lot of waiting this year. Working on my dissertation, the amount of waiting is profound. But it's been good for my prayer life, is what I keep telling people. It's great for my prayer life. When it comes to delay, Ellen White has this quote. She said, the delay is for our benefit. Some of us are like, I don't like these benefits. And I wanted to just ask you guys to think about, why would God delaying an answer be a benefit for us? Raluca and then Ms. Tasker.
I just thought of a friend of mine in Romania. His parents, I don't know if he grew up in the church, but his parents prayed for him for over 30 years. And I like what you're bringing out. What do we do while we're waiting?
Right.
And they trusted God, and after 30-some years, he came back to the Lord, and now he's an elder or deacon or something, a strong leader in the church. And I think that delay taught them complete trust in God.
Okay.
You know how it says that your heart is not proud, in that waiting time, we surrender it to God. I think learning to surrender during that time, maybe that's why God is delaying, and we may not think, 30-some years to wait for their son to come to the Lord, but praise God, he did.
Okay, so there's a time to trust. Over here, then Lynn, and then Dina.
Sometimes the waiting is to benefit somebody else.
Oh, this is true. Okay.
And we had an amazing experience in New Guinea at the university there. We were looking for a song for a special program, couldn't find it, went through the library, but in the process of not finding it, and God delayed his answer for a few weeks, and we desperately needed for this program, I found a book on pottery that the pottery teacher had lost for 2 years. It was in the music section, and so there was no way that he'd ever find it. And that's why I knew God had delayed his answer.
I love that. And you know what? What I love about that is I'm sure she'd prayed, like, please help me to find this book. And no one was ever going to find it. Yes, Lynn.
There are 3 reasons, I think, that the Lord allows us to take it. Reason number 1 is to strengthen us, because there's a weakness in us. Yeah. And there was one, the second one I had a hard time with for a long time, and that is because we can take it. I had to work that one out, because we can take it.
Okay.
And then my wife is reading a book, and she explained to me the essence of the book. and I'm waiting to read the book. She hasn't finished yet. And the book is Be Unoffendable.
I've heard of it, yes.
That means that nothing offends you, so you have no reason to strike back. Mm-hmm. So I got to work on that one. I got to find out what that one means. Nothing offends you. That's what Jesus was. Nothing offended him.
Okay. Dina?
I just think trust is the bottom line, and waiting, the big deal is trust there. Are you really going to come through, Lord? So.
Okay. Radhika?
Can a mother explain to us how is like a weaned child with his mother? Mm-hmm. Can a mother explain this comparison?
I don't know. You said, can a mother explain what a weaned child is with their child? Anybody want to explain that? She just wanted to know if a mother could explain that, like a weaned child with his mother. If anybody could reflect on that.
Because it's twice, surely I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with his mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me.
Yeah. But George will, yes.
Well, when I read this last week, it seemed to me that this was psalmist's picture of perfect trust. Okay? Mama's fed me, I'm lying with her, on her, and I feel safe.
Yeah.
So that's the way that particular part of the psalm touched my heart.
Okay, so that complete safety of child with a mother. Yeah, Laura.
I think when you think of the weaned child, they're more independent from they're not as dependent as the child who's still feeding from the mother. So that if they're still have that love and trust in their mother, even though they can be more independent, that's the kind of love and trust that we should have in God.
Yeah, still looking to Christ. Okay. Did I see your hand over here? No, okay. So I want to just tell you two stories. One relates to something that just happened to me, and one that's from quite a long time ago. As many of you know, I'm working on my dissertation. I had started my review, so it's an ethics review of my study, in August. I have gotten multiple delays where I would send in a draft, I get revisions, send in another draft, get revisions. I try to, the way I explain it is like writing an essay, and every sentence you write has to get approved by a committee. It's very challenging and very, very frustrating. I've had a lot of times of just praying and just fasting, because sometimes I would run into situations that I couldn't even solve. They would say things that I thought were absolutely impossible to do, and then God would work it out. Well, I started in August, and I needed to collect data last Tuesday. And so I'd asked God, it was still out for modifications. I'd asked God, could you please have it done by Friday so I could just relax over the weekend? Friday came, checked my mail around 5, because, I'm going to see, I can just rest on Sabbath. No word. I was like, Lord, okay. So I came home, I was at Dina's house, and we prayed about it, had a nice time. I just said, you know what, I need to praise God as if it's going to happen. And I've actually been fasting every week for this to happen. And I felt impressed not to fast this week and just to celebrate that it was going to happen. So I went out and treated myself to some Cuban food on Sunday to celebrate that God was going to answer this prayer. He did, Monday at 4. So I had to wait all day Monday before I heard the word that it had been approved, and we collected data on Tuesday. And so to me, that was an example of waiting on God, because every delay was just a prayer. And by the way, it's kind of like it's in a mountain and a valley and a mountain and a valley, because I was like, collected data on Tuesday. Nobody has responded to my survey. And so if you guys could pray for me, I would really appreciate it. And I'm going to be sending out a follow-up email. But by the way, I have to get that approved by this committee. So that may not be for another week or 2 weeks, because I have to send it to them and they have to approve it. So it's a lot of delay and a lot of praying. But I have noticed a difference in my life. And even what's just funny, on Monday when I was like, yay, it's over, I feel like I wasn't even as close to God, because I was like, oh, we're done now. And he's like, no, you're not done. You still need me. So I'm grateful I get a chance to pray. Another story is, I came back to the United States from working in Thailand in 2009, May of 2009. I came at a perfect time. The economy had just crashed. And I had said, the worst thing that could happen to me is I have to go live with my parents. And in retrospect, I had my worst case scenario wasn't that bad, because it wasn't that bad living with them, just so it's clear. But it was embarrassing to be in your 30s and living with your parents. That was the fear. And so I went and lived with my parents looking for work. During that time, I think my dad had gone on a trip, and my mom had to go pick him up in San Francisco, and we lived in Redding at the time, which is a good 3-hour drive, I think. It's a long drive. She got delayed in traffic, and she was just so frustrated that she was delayed in traffic. But she got to the airport, and when she pulled up to the curb, my dad walked out of the doors at the same time. And she said, sometimes waiting is arriving just on time. And that was a really good metaphor for me in that season, because I was like, I can't find a job, and so I'm a teacher. And if you don't find a job by August, you don't have a job. And around that time, I actually applied for a job out here, and it was really weird. They said, we're not hiring till January. Nobody ever says that to teach, like, who hires till January? But we can't promise you a job. And so I said, okay, I'll just wait. I got the job. But I didn't get it till October. Okay, so I had to live with my parents until December of that year, 2009. And I had to teach middle schoolers, they're lovely. It just reminded me why I'm a college teacher, I'll just say that, okay? So I waited on God. The answer was not clear, but the answer did come. And by the way, that's not the only thing I've waited on. There's some other things I'll tell you about as we continue, but I'm going to change topics just a little bit. Can somebody read Psalm 63, verse 1? Yes, please.
63, verse 1?
Yes.
Psalm 63, verse 1. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water.
Does anybody feel that they're in a dry and parched land? You don't need to raise your hand. But I'm sure that there are some people who may feel that. Your life may feel that desert. And the desert is hard because you're thirsty. But in that space, in that time, is where God can sharpen our longings for Him. And I think that is my desire, is that as I wait, can my longings for Him be sharpened? I wrote this once in my journal some years ago, is that I want to be a good steward of my disappointments. I also want to be a good steward of my waiting. Am I waiting on God? Can He use that to sharpen my longing for Him? And my experience this year with my dissertation definitely is true, where I'm just waiting, and I'm just saying, God, there's no answer except for you. So help me to long for you in this desert land. Anybody else have any thoughts on this verse? Is that a hand? Okay.
I'm thinking of a biblical example of the same kind of idea that you're talking about, and it's the prophet Daniel.
Yes.
At the end of a couple of his visions, he feels so overwhelmed and sick.
Right.
And especially at the end of Daniel chapter 8, I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. And then I rose and went about the king's business.
Yeah.
The answer to that prayer that came another 13 or 14 years later.
Wow.
That's when Daniel 9 starts.
Right.
And that was the key to unlock Daniel chapter 8.
Wow.
And the understanding of the vision.
Right.
So, we can't say that Daniel was a bad man. That's why he had to wait so long.
No.
He is a man of God. And
exactly.
Yet there was a reason that God delayed.
Right.
So that at the right time, that answer would come.
I really appreciate you bringing that out, because I'm imagining Daniel, who's smart and inquisitive. He had to think for 14 years before the next chapter. And that's really interesting to think about. Yes, Dina.
One of the
most painful waiting times for me was up in a mountain cabin.
Yes.
In near Yosemite, Greeley Hill.
Yeah.
And I won't go into all the details, but it was like, oh Lord, please, what am I doing up here? George had a wonderful job. I didn't want, anyway, long story. They didn't have a job at his clinic at that time for a nurse practitioner, and I was just going crazy, praying to the Lord, please, and it seemed like he would never answer.
Yeah.
And when God did answer, it opened up doors that I never, ever could have imagined.
Right.
It was a ministry that consumed the rest of my life in many ways, but it was wonderful. So sometimes that waiting is waiting for a big answer that God has waiting for us just on the other side of the waiting time.
Right? And you make me think of two things. One is there's a quote, I wish I can remember the author. Sometimes it feels like we're being put aside, but we're being planted. And the other is that if you look at all the stories, not all, but most of the stories of great people in the Bible, there's a lot of waiting involved. Abraham, Moses, Sarah. There was always waiting. When God had something big, he had to have us wait. And I think it's to learn that trust, because if Joseph hadn't been in a prison, he may not have had the capacity to wait on God when he was lifted up into a position of power. Okay. I am appreciating these thoughts. I want to just read a thought from Sunday's lesson. It says, perseverance is our supreme commitment of refusing to succumb to the fear of disappointment, that somehow God will not come through for us. God's devoted child waits, knowing with certainty that God is faithful, and those who wait on him can trust that if we leave our situation in him, we can be sure that he will work it out for our best, even if at the time we don't necessarily see it that way. And so I think the question that I have from that is, what prevents you from succumbing to discouragement and when disappointment comes your way? Is there a way that you respond so that you do not get discouraged?
Yeah, as soon as you were reading that, God's word, it's so awesome. You know, I can go to this Bible, of many books, and read of all the stories of men, women, of the trials and struggles that they went through, and the decisions that they make. You know, they have that crossroads that they're meeting in life. Which way are they going to go?
Right.
And I get to see the results of it,
right.
of either good or bad, and it helps guide me in those storms of life.
I like that. The word. Okay, yes.
For me, when I get in those positions where things seem down, for me it's reframing.
Yeah.
Just try to make that frame big enough to include God and that great controversy, and it's much easier then to deal with the little bit of waiting and challenge that I have today.
I like that. There's a bigger story, and we're a part of that bigger story. Yes, over here.
For me, it's remembering my personal history.
Okay.
And I can see where God has, when things were going in the wrong direction, it seemed to me that things did turn around.
Right.
And just remembering that, okay, he had the capacity back then, he still has capacity today to do that.
I like that. Remembering times where God has been faithful in other areas can be super powerful. Okay. In fact, I think we're going to go that direction. I'm realizing it's 10:30. I'm supposed to be done, correct? Okay. I'm realizing we're going to have to skip over some things. But I really wanted to actually go and think about what does it mean when an answer has been fulfilled, when we've waited and we receive an answer. And so I wanted someone to look up Proverbs 13:12. So we're if I have time, I'll circle back to some of the other things I wanted to talk about, but I really wanted to talk about the fulfillment of waiting.
Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life.
Okay. So there's and some of us feel like we're kind of in perpetual hope deferred. My dissertation is definitely hope deferred. Okay. But then there's the response. Did you? No, you were just, okay. Can somebody read? I want to just look briefly at the story of Sarah. I know it's not in the lesson, but I think this is a really good story of hope waiting being resolved. And if somebody could read Genesis 18, 12 through 15, and then I'm going to ask the same person to read a little more of Genesis, but we'll start with Genesis 18, 12 through 15. Anybody want to read that? Rose in the back over here.
Genesis
18, 12 through 15. Oh, sorry, go ahead, yeah.
12?
Yeah, 18, 12 through 15.
Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being also old? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son.
Okay. Rose, could you also read Genesis 21, 1 through 6?
And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac.
Okay. So if you're familiar with Isaac, Isaac actually means laughter. So here it was that Sarah laughed at God. Could this happen to me? Ha ha. You have to be joking. And then when she had a child, they named them laughter. And I think there's two kinds of laughter. There's the laughter of disbelief, like, no. And there's the laughter of resolution and of joy. And I love this idea that there is a resolution. Now, I will say that sometimes that resolution doesn't happen this side of eternity. But we do know that no matter what, there is a resolution. There's a really beautiful psalm, and it's Psalm 126. If somebody could read that, I would really love that. The whole chapter. Yes, over here.
Psalm 126. Mm-hmm. When the Lord brought back the captives to Zion, we were like men who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like streams in the Negev. Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy. He who goes out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with him.
Okay. There's a resolution. For them, it's the return from Babylon, return from exile. This psalm has a particularly beautiful image in my mind. In 1999, I had the opportunity to work in Albania during the time of the Kosovar refugee crisis. The Kosovar were an ethnic group related to Albanians up in Kosovo, pushed out of Kosovo into Albania. It was actually a huge refugee crisis. I went and volunteered to help. While I was there, everything was resolved, well, mostly resolved, and they got to go home. And I have this distinct memory in my mind of seeing this truck. It's kind of maybe like a dump truck, maybe a cement truck, but very large truck. And if you've ever lived abroad, it's amazing how many people you can get in one vehicle. It's a skill that I think that Americans don't have probably. And there was luggage and there was people, and they were just like piled on this truck. And the truck is pulling out of the town, and they're chanting, Kosovo, Kosovo. They're going home. Our mouths were filled with laughter. We're going home. And so we have the opportunity as we wait to recognize that we are going home. That, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean the waiting isn't hard. The waiting is hard. It is challenging. There are heartaches that are just really hard to deal with, but we also have the hope. And so the lesson talks about Psalm 126, but it also talks about the morning and God coming in the morning. So if somebody could read Psalm 130, verse 5 and 6, that'd be great. Anyone want to read Psalm 130, verse 5 and 6? Oh, Laura back here.
I wait for the Lord, my soul doth wait, and in his word do I hope. My soul waiteth for the Lord more than they that watch for the morning. I say, more than they that watch for the morning.
So I thought it was interesting. The lesson kind of ties this verse into another verse, and that is Psalm 30, verse 5, if somebody could look that up and read it. Thanks, Keith.
Psalm 30, verse 5. For his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning.
So we are waiting, we are longing for morning. Our weeping is lasting here sometimes for the night, but there is that joy that comes in the morning. And there's another text the lesson shared, and that's 2 Peter 1:19. Somebody could read that. So 2 Peter 1, chapter 1, verse 19. Oh yeah, please, Rose.
2 Peter 1, verse 19. Okay. We have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do well that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts.
Okay. So they talk about the day star rising. And then if we go to Revelation 22:16, if somebody would read that.
I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, the bright and morning star.
So Peter talks about the day star rising. The day star rising is Christ. He is the morning that is going to come for us. And it is so encouraging to know that this is the direction that we are going. I want to look at Revelation 19, 6 through 8. If there's somebody that could look that up. Any takers? Laura, thank you.
And I heard, as it were, the voice of a great multitude, and as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of mighty thunderings, saying, Hallelujah, for the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for the fine linen is the righteousness of saints. And he saith unto me, Write, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he saith unto me, These are the true sayings of God.
Okay, thank you. I want to connect this to a verse, and I want to just make the point that I'm making this connection. I'm not sure it's an actual connection, but if somebody can read Genesis 29:19. Rose, thank you.
29:19?
Yes.
And Laban said, It is better that I give her to thee than I should give her to another man. Abide with me.
Okay, I may have written the wrong verse down. Can you read 18 as well?
And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter.
Okay, poor Rose. I'm going to ask you to read verse 21 too while you're at it. I'm looking for the verse. I don't have it in front of me.
And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her.
Okay, I appreciate you, Rose, and I'm going to make you stop. By the way, I have studied with the Bible with people, and one of the ladies I studied with, she's always laughing at me because I'm like, this verse, and I'm like, oh, that's not the verse. The verse I wanted to say, and I must have written it down wrong, is that Jacob said the years were short. The years were short because he loved her. And as we wait for Christ to come, as we wait for the marriage of the Lamb, my prayer is may the years feel short because we love him. May the time of waiting, as difficult and challenging as it may it be wrapped up in the love of Christ, knowing that we're going that direction. And as we go in that direction, those years do not have to be prolonged. So I was going to share with you a waiting situation that God resolved, but it took 9 years. I said to you guys that I came back to the States in 2009. One of the reasons I came back was I realized that I needed to further my education. And I started praying about it in 2009. And I came here to Florida in 2010, just January 2010. And I just could not come up with a good answer. I didn't know what I was supposed to study. I didn't want to do a PhD in English. I had thought about doing a PhD in leadership, and I took the GRE. I got a 309, and you need like a 310 or 15 to get a really good scholarship, and I couldn't afford to go. I studied for 6 months, and I did worse on the second time around. And so I sat in my car, and I just wept. I was like, I don't even understand. Like, God, I'm trying so hard, and obviously I don't know where you want me to do or what you want me to do, because this degree is not what I'm going to do. I can't afford it. So it was in 2019, one of my coworkers came to me. He's like, you have to get a degree. And I was like, oh, this guy, he's always bothering me. And I was like, well, I'll just look up online, just Google something. And I Googled something, and I found a degree that was just being offered by UCF that year, starting that year, within a couple of months of me looking. And it wasn't just that it was offered at UCF, it was offered about 2 miles from where I work. And if you guys know about UCF, I work just north of downtown Orlando. The main campus is about an hour away from downtown. They had just moved to downtown Orlando. There's a campus there. Get a chance to visit it. And they just started this program that year. So the location lined up, and also the timing lined up. And so I was just so stunned because I had waited so long and prayed so often and had so many like walls and barriers of just degrees that did not work out. And the only funny thing was I looked at the deadline to apply for the program, and it was like the week before. And I was like, oh, I've already missed the deadline. So I went out and I reached out to the main program chair. I said, I'm interested in your program, but I just missed your deadline. He's like, come talk to me. So I went and talked to him. And here's something else. This might say something about me. This is both a brag and a shame. On my GRE, I'm the 98th percentile for verbal. That means that that's above all the other people who've taken the test. For math, it's 12%. Okay? So let's just say that math is not my strong point. And I went to the gentleman and I said, look, sir, my GRE scores don't match what you're looking for. I have the verbal, but when you bring the math into it, I'm good. I know enough about math to know between 12% and 98%, you actually have a really low score. He looks at me, he said, it's a degree in communication. I'm not worried about your math score. Apply for the program. So I did. Nice. And I got in. And that's why I'm suffering today. That's the other part of the story. And I'm almost done. It's been, we started in 2019, right during a Hurricane Dorian. And we thought that was bad, and then the pandemic came. But God really led. But the truth is, even though that is resolved, there are other things that I'm waiting on in my life. Things that I don't know will ever be resolved this side of eternity. And what God has taught me is that as you wait, when there are prayers that you pray and you pray them every day, and he says no, the answer is wait, trust, be faithful. What are you doing in that time of waiting? And as we wait, we are learning and leaning into Christ. So I really want to encourage you. I said at the beginning as we were talking that if I had glasses, I could see that some of you are waiting for things, and they may be different things. But I want to encourage you that as you wait, God waits with you, that he is your friend, your brother, your shepherd, your father, and that we can trust him even when we wait. And that sometimes that's our greatest testimony. So that's my encouragement. I'm going to close with prayer. We're actually done a little early. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we're so thankful that we can trust you and we can wait on you. Lord, we want to be like that verse that says, wait on the Lord, be of good courage. Wait on the Lord. For those of us who are waiting, Lord, for things that seem, maybe it's decades, maybe it's our whole life, unresolved, please help us just to trust you and to find our hope and strength in you. In your name, amen. Thank you, guys.